Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to day 13 in our series of short videos taking a look at how you can live with more resilience in your life. Today's focus will be on emotions, specifically the benefits of being able to express them rather than suppress them. It's natural in conversations that we can say things like, "You made me angry when you said that. You made me upset when you did that. You made me frustrated when you did the other." All those statements, however, are putting the blame for your emotions on the other person rather than taking ownership of them yourself. If you were to rephrase those and say something such as, "When you said that, I felt hurt. When you did this, I felt upset. When you did the other, I felt frustrated." And whilst you're still getting the same message across, in that moment, you are taking ownership of your emotions. Now, I believe the ultimate expression of emotion is crying. And I was very interested to learn that in young children, the amount of times that boys cry is almost identical to the amount of times girls cry. However, when we reach adolescence, the ratio then becomes 2 to 1, with girls crying nearly twice as much as boys. And I'm sure, sadly, that is down to the fact that boys are often brought up hearing things like, "Boys don't cry," seeing crying as being a sign of weakness. And then, on one hand, being told by progressive adults that they should talk about their feelings and express their feelings, and on the other hand, they're being tagged and labelled with names like snowflake or, more historically, crybaby. Given, in my opinion, that crying is a sign of strength rather than a sign of weakness, I personally believe that crybaby is the ultimate compliment rather than the ultimate insult. For those of you familiar with my story, you will know about the time I visited a year 6 class here in the UK, which would be, for many of you around the world, elementary, I think you would class it as. And for us in the UK, it's the year where it's the last year for the students in primary school before they go up to secondary school. I was sharing my resilience talk in front of this class, and there was a young man there who, for safeguarding reasons, I refer to as Declan. Declan was what we would have known in my day as the cock of the school, the boy who no one else in school could win in a fight. And Declan was very disengaged from the off, arms folded, no eye contact whatsoever. However, I didn't allow this to put me off my stride, remembering that this was about the children of the audience, not about me. I delivered that talk, and at the end of the talk, Declan was the first to raise his hand and say that as a result of me sharing my story, he was able to share with his class that up to the age of 18 months, when he was adopted, he had been so badly physically abused, he was left with permanent brain damage. Not only that, Declan, who had been brought up in an ex-mining village in the north of England, had been brought up according to the belief that boys don't cry. In that moment, having shared that with his whole class, Declan then, in front of that whole class, sat and shed the 8.5 years worth of tears pent up inside him. And for me, that was just absolutely mind-blowing. And that is the occasion that I always think back to, that reminds me of what I do and why I do it for the Declans out there in the world. And I think to see Declan show the amount of strength to shed those tears in front of a whole class really did move everyone present. Now, as we're coming up to Christmas, many people will be celebrating. For others, year in and year out, Christmas is a difficult time in the best of times, let alone the current situation. This year, with isolation, the COVID pandemic, and other influences, it's going to be a more difficult Christmas this year for more people than for a long time before. And it is for that very reason that I have scheduled my Resilience 101 Spring Forward Big Time into 2021 in the Twixmas period between Christmas and New Year, so that those finishing the year that are struggling have the connectivity to come together, the empathy of each other in that group environment, and the positivity and the optimism to go into the new year. I did talk about that in a little bit more depth yesterday, so I'm not going to go into any detail about that today, other than to say that the link is once again in the chat below this video. There are still some places left, although they are going very quickly. In closing today, I would invite you, next time you feel like you are suppressing your emotions, to release them, whether that's by having a good cry publicly or privately, if that suits you better, and then just taking stock afterwards of how much better you feel at having let go of those emotions. And again, this feels like the appropriate time to round off this video by reminding you that you are more than a survivor. You are a thriver. Look forward to seeing you again on tomorrow's video.